And the Nigerian Custodial Center is reported to have over 75,000 inmates, overshooting its capacity by over 16,000 inmates. And this was stated by the Controller General of Corrections, CGC, Haliru Nababa. Of those figures, it is estimated that over 74% are inmates awaiting trial and a mere 26% being actual convicts. There are also possibilities some of these persons have been wrongfully convicted.
Now, it can't be overstated the need to reduce these numbers and also to provide legal assistance to those held for many years without proper legal representation. Our guest this morning, Oluyemi Adetiba Orija, leads an all-women team, the Headford Foundation. Now, this group offers free legal services to poor people and those who are unable to get bail, as well as people facing long pre-trial detentions. Good morning, Oluremi. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, Oluremi, lead us to, what, at the point where you decided to start the foundation, what prompted this?
Okay, so my background is I am a trained lawyer and I'm licensed to practice law in Nigeria. And I served in Akwa Ibom State, so appearing in court and saying that there are a lot of people brought from prison to the court for their cases without legal representation. The number is alarming, and when you look at the status of these people, majorly they are people below the lower cadre, people that would naturally not even think of having a lawyer, not to talk of, so they can't even afford it in the first place. So, and at the end of the day, you realize that they are being charged for minor offenses. If they had lawyers, they probably won't spend as long as they will spend in prison. Or in fact, somebody would have, represented them and take their matters on their head, that kind of thing. But that was not the situation that I found as a young lawyer. And I told myself something must be done about this. So when I moved to Lagos after my service here, I saw a first-hand situation in a court that gripped my heart. And I said, no, this is high time I have to do something about this. And that was when a guy was charged to court for breaking a crate of eggs, And I was shocked to see that the court was about to remand this guy in prison. And it was at that stage that I stood up in court and told the court, no, I'm sure the complainant is not interested in this guy going to prison. He's actually interested in her getting her money. And I told the courtroom, people in the courtroom, we could contribute this money, less than 2,000 naira at the time. And we started to contribute money. And before you know it, we had contributed more than 2,000 naira. We gave it to the complainant. The complainant was good and happy, and she left. And the court reprimanded the defendant. And, that was it. Everybody went home good. So I told myself, if I could do this in the space of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I helped somebody regain his freedom, I could do this for a lot more of people in prison facilities. And that was where, I was resolute. I was convinced that this is something I have to do. Then as the year goes by, I started the foundation, started getting more people to join me and convincing people on how and reason why they should join this. And that has helped me so far.
That's very, very interesting. But this is now the scary part, and if you can share with us, how common are these, maybe wrongful convictions in Nigeria's justice system? And are there one or two examples you can share?
Definitely. So that we started Headford Foundation in 2019, and till date, we have helped 332 persons out of prison for free. And if I say 332 persons, you would imagine the kind of stories that I must have privileged of hearing and attending to. So, but the one that I say, the one that made that is it for me was a guy who spent 5 years in prison, and he was charged to court for conspiracy. Now, conspiracy with other persons to commit armed robbery. But the court or the DPP at the time, after a year, he was arrested in 2016. In 2017, the DPP said this guy had no case to answer and he should be released to go to his family. But you know what? We met him in prison in 2021. And when we took his case, we had to do a lot of search. What is going on? Why is this guy still in prison for conspiracy? And we realized that he should have been released since 2017 17. But because he had no legal representation, he had no lawyer, and the families were tired, they had spent money, they couldn't do anything anymore. That was at the point, so nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew the court has pronounced that he should be released. The wardens didn't proceed. Nobody followed up on that case until we took it up in 2021. And in June, we got the court to ensure that the order of the court was executed to let him go. Now that tells you a lot of people who are in prison that should not be in prison. Imagine the government saying you do not have a case to answer, and 5 years or 4 years after, you are still in incarceration because you do not have a lawyer or a family member going on and on your case. So I mean that case is one that I can't explain it. Nobody is held responsible for it. I mean, there was a warden on duty on that day when the court made the pronunciation that he should be released, and no one followed through to ensure that he was released in prison because he was not present in court when the court made that pronunciation.
Oluyemi, let's talk about, it's a very, very valid point that you've raised there. And let's talk about the provision of the law. We do know that the Constitution provides that everybody, has a right. We know that even legally, everyone has a right to fair hearing and a right to defense. But what leads to situations where a person who is arrested for years, held for years without legal representation? We know that the system also provides some form of representation. Would you say that it's not enough? Talk to us about legal aid as well.
Okay, yes. By Nigerian law, and I believe that's all over the world, when you are indigent, when you do not have the capacity to contract legal services, the government should provide you with one. And that's why we have the legal aid. And in Lagos State, we even have more because there is the Office of the OPD, Office of Public Defender, with the federal government agency legal aid. However, the issue we have is when you go to these agencies, my organization works hand in hand with the legal aid. We have a collaboration, but you realize that these organizations are overwhelmed. Now, if you look at Lagos, I'll take Lagos again, for instance. The Ikoyi prison currently is housing close to 3,000 inmates, and that prison was built for 800 inmates. So as you look at how many staff do legal aid agency has in Lagos, are they up to 100? How do you attend to this number of people? And it keeps increasing by the day, So these organizations or agencies are quite overwhelmed. And that's why it is important for non-profit organizations to join hands with them and, do this work together.
Well, I want us to talk about your most recent case. That's how I actually came about your account, about your organization. A gardener is named Otto Bong, who was freed by your organization after 1 year and 6 months. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, if you look at Otto Bong's story, it's one that everybody is a pathetic one because, again, it's similar to the case that I just shared with you. Maybe his was not up to 5 years before we saw him. This is a guy who was charged. He was a gardener. He was charged along 2 other guys, for an offense. And the court said, Otto Bong is not guilty. The DPP said, release him and charge the 2 other guys to the higher court that has jurisdiction to hear that case. But Otto Bong was still left in prison, regardless of the court pronunciation, And until my colleague met him in court, because we have a project where we call the Lawyers Without Border. That project helps us to have mobile offices within court premises. So it was through that my colleague met Otto Bong, and he shared a story, shared the reason why he's in prison. And this lady said, no, we have to do something about it. She went to the court, checked the files, because it is important that we also make sure that the story that the defendant had told us tallies with what is actually transpiring in court. So we have to do our research, our due diligence, which she did, and found out this guy is not supposed to be in prison at this time because since last year, the court had pronounced he should be released. And until we did that, that was when we have to get a date for his case. He was still brought to magistrate court. It's funny because it was continually brought to the magistrate court, while the 2 other guys had been charged to the high court, and they were in a case together. So that's where, if our justice system were to be well detailed, and our personnel are the ones that are inquisitive and curious, a question should have been asked. three people are in a case. One person is brought to the magistrate court and two other persons are taken to the high court. What is going on? But nobody did that until our lawyer, took out the case and said no. So it was just last week, Thursday, that Otombo was released after our lawyer represented him in court and told the court that this guy, the DPP advice is out, and he had said that he should be released because he has no case to answer. And I can tell you that there are thousands or hundreds of Otombo in prisons who should naturally not be there by the pronouncement or the advice of the DPP. But notwithstanding or regardless, they're still there, whether because they do not have legal representation. Most of the time, that's the reason. And at times, it's because our justice system is just the way it is. And I mean, nobody is doing anything.
Oluyemi, there's so much that needs to be done. There have been conversations about police brutality. There have been conversations about people, wrongful arrest. Unfortunately, the justice system might not be as fast as many would want it to be. How can we all be a part of this work? You've also mentioned that the legal aid staff are not sufficient to cover the cases. And of course, your organization is doing what it can or what it must, in partnership with the legal aid. How can we all collectively be a part of ensuring that we get more people out of prison who have been wrongfully arrested?
So at Hedgeroad Foundation, we always ask for people to volunteer. Now, you can volunteer your skill if you're a lawyer. And if you're not a lawyer, you can also volunteer your resources. So in prison, across Nigeria right now, we have about 240 prisons. And I can tell you that the ones at the urban city are majorly congested. By statistics, Lagos prisons are congested by 250%. So if you look at these statistics, you realize that we need help, just like you have mentioned. And I'll say that this help, because at the end of the day, what has always come to my mind is anybody can be a victim at any time. Our police aren't smiling, they arrest you for really no just cause, and you find yourself in prison, in court, then in prison. So the police has a lot of work to do by way of reform, by way of training and retraining, by way of also checkmating. I mean, the senior officers checkmate what the junior officers are doing. But the way it is like nobody is actually checkmating anybody. They arrest you and tomorrow you're in court for something that is outrightly, that you have no idea of. And anybody can be a victim of this. So the police, the judicial personnel, the judges, registrars, prosecutors, lawyers have a lot to do. And I say something, there is no how you can be called to the Nigerian bar, you will not do pro bono work. But when I say pro bono work, I mean free legal services. So if it is one that you can take in a year, please do. Someone somewhere in one prison in Nigeria needs that service. So please, lawyers across Nigeria, I ask and I'm pleading and urging that please introduce pro bono legal services to your work. And we as the Nigerian general public support courses like this. People who do not know anything are languishing in jail for something they shouldn't be, they shouldn't be punished for, something they are not even aware of. So we all have work to do. Support courses where you see courses like this. It is not easy. When I say we've helped 332 persons, it is not easy. The resources is not there. So if you do not have the legal skill to help, please share content to people that needs to hear it, that can render this service. And again, support your resources, your money, your items. Sometimes they need books. Sometimes the lawyers need electronics and all of those things. So please support, all I can say.
Oluyemi Adetiba Orija, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing these stories, and for the work that you and your team are doing. We look forward to having you join us again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.